Okay, it's great to see all of you. Welcome to Unit 4, Lesson 6. As usual, you're looking for tasks for U4L6 under assignments or on the weekly calendar. Today's date is January 20th. You can find it in either location. We'll start off with our usual pair and share meetings. The question for today is, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, which ones would you keep? Now, what I'm referring to here is like the more unusual kind of things you had to install that you choose to use, right? So assume that it's still a phone, right? You still have the calling and FaceTime, you still have messaging, you still have the camera. You don't have to choose those. What are the other apps that you feel like you use a lot or that you like having that you would want to keep if you had to only keep 3? Think about that for 20 seconds. So that's 3 in addition to, again, assuming you're keeping calling, FaceTime, messaging, camera. All right, don't forget to say hi and check in with the person you're in the room with as well. We'll come back together in 2 minutes. Rooms are open, everybody. Next on the docket is homework review. The only homework, I'll just share my screen here for 2 seconds, was to make sure you finished up the classwork, specifically the crash course respiratory system, Ed Puzzle, and the John Hopkins vaping reading reflection. I'll look at those right now. So the first one was just you had to watch these 2 ads and compare the differences between them, which I think is pretty good. Kind of interesting that how many attempts was I seeing on that? 12 attempts on the John Hopkins one, 12 attempts on both homeworks. So that's good. Some of you might still need to work through those. But what a difference between, I don't know if you guys watched those 2 advertisements that were there, but such a huge difference. Clearly you can tell one company is trying to make money by selling vape pens. Tobacco Free California is trying to raise awareness, not making money from that. So what was one takeaway that you guys might have taken from, like, why are teenagers more prone to developing holes in their lungs from inhaling things like hot vapor? Why are teenagers are particularly vulnerable to that disease or that condition? What's true about your lungs? What are they going through right now? I think in particular it mentioned like teenagers who were tall and lanky and gone through rapid growth.
Like, I think like we're all growing, and like when you grow, like there's like a weak point in your lungs, and like you get like these blisters, I think is how they said it or something.
Yeah.
And then like it will like pop them or burn through them.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that, especially apparently towards the top of the lungs, which I guess is where a lot of the growth happens. Yeah, there's essentially weak points that then could potentially like burst open, resulting in pneumothorax, which we'll get to in a second. What was the other thing I want to ask about? Popcorn lung. I used to always think that popcorn lung referred to the fact that your lungs like rattle, right? Like they make like a clacking sound when you breathe because they're full of fluid or something. That's actually not where the name comes from. Did anyone see where the name actually comes from? Why do they call it popcorn lung?
Wasn't the name from the fact that like it was caused by one of the chemicals used in popcorn?
Yeah,
Like micro popcorn.
It's a flavor chemical that was first used in packaged popcorn, and they started to see these lung problems and lung cancers in the factory workers who are breathing it all in. That's where the name came from, was popcorn lung. But now they're seeing the same thing in people using vape pens because the same chemical is used in vaporizer pens and e-cigarettes. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, something I didn't realize. Cool. And then the pneumothorax assignment, I think is kind of interesting. So that's when you've got a hole in your lungs. It's kind of cool to see that your upper chest is actually a sealed container that your lungs are in. And so if a hole gets poked in it, if you get shot or stabbed, or if you're in a car accident and puncture wounds, you're at high risk of having a lung collapse. And that's because air gets into what's called the pleural space, which is the space between the lung and your chest cavity. Incidentally, though, what's then the way that that's often treated, or at least temporarily fixed? If anyone was brave enough to watch that Three Kings scene with George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. But Wiley, I saw your hand. How do they usually treat it temporarily?
Don't they put like a tube of some sort?
Yeah. So they poke another hole in, which seems counterintuitive. But if you can get like a needle in there or something, it can let the gas out. And so that then provides space for the lung to expand again and continue breathing. How many people were brave enough to watch the Three Kings scene? It's kind of cool that they show you like the internal anatomy. I don't know how they did that. It's yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how that's done. And as far as I know, it's a real thing that can happen on the battlefield sometimes. So any other questions or comments on those two homework assignments on lung health in general? Alrighty. Our goal today is to do a laboratory activity where you're going to be measuring your lung capacity. However, to do that, you're going to need balloons and rulers. And now you don't need these. You'll still be able to do the lab if you don't have them. But I want to throw a quick survey out there. You should see a poll. Go ahead and answer those two questions for me, please, about whether or not you have balloons. Again, you don't need to lie. If you don't have balloons, it's okay. You can still do the lab. I have sample data you can work with, but I just want to see who has them and who doesn't. Awesome, seeing 13 responses. Let's see the results. Here you go. So it looks like 4 of you have balloons. That's fine. And a little more than half of you have rulers. So that's great. So don't panic if you don't have a balloon or ruler and you're not able to do the actual measurement portion. It's okay. There's sample data that you can work with. You can still do all the other parts of the lab. You can still answer all the questions. If you do have balloons, just follow the instructions for the actual measurements. It's pretty straightforward. Just know you're going to be doing a lot of breathing and inflating of the balloons. So if you start feeling lightheaded, like take a break. Okay, I don't want anybody like passing out because you're hyperventilating and breathing too much. Okay, so let me just show you really quickly what you're going to do based on whether or not you have the equipment. So we are on tasks to complete step number 3, measuring lung capacity. Click on the link right there. It'll take you to a lengthy Canvas quiz that should look like this. The first 5 questions are kind of a pre-lab thing. They're all multiple choice, so just take your best guess on those. And then you'll get into the actual lab procedure. The first thing is going to be based entirely on your own weight and height, and you don't need a ruler for this part. You just need something straight. So you could use a pen or whatever. Anyway, instructions are there. It's a little weird. You're going to need to hold something up to your screen, but anyway, I try to make it as clear as possible. You'll figure that out. I'll be here listening if someone needs help too. I can walk you through certain parts of this. But then here is where you're going to open up a Google Sheet, which looks like this. And so again, for those of you who have balloons and rulers, you'll follow the instructions and you'll actually fill this table, the balloon diameter, with your own measurements. If you don't have a balloon or you don't have a ruler, then you're just going to use the sample data, which is right here. So here's the sample data for males. Just take those numbers and enter them into this same table right here. Just copy them. And here's the sample data for females. Again, take that data and just put it right in there in that balloon diameter, and then the lab will walk you through everything else. So the lung volume, you'll still be able to fill that in. Just follow the instructions in the lab. It'll tell you what to do for that, regardless of whether you have a balloon or not. You can do that. So, all right, I'll be here listening. If you have questions or if something seems unclear, please read the instructions carefully. I tried to be as clear as possible, but again, if you find something confusing, just let me know. I'm happy to take you to a breakout room as well to work together. I'm going to time for 25 minutes, but I'll watch your progress. If you're not finished in 25 minutes, don't worry. You can finish this as homework. If you do finish ahead of time, you're welcome to get started on the homework, which is a reading of an article, which is a little bit long. So if you want to get a head start on that, that's also a good idea. Okay, 25 minutes to work on measuring lung capacity. Let me know if you need help.